Hey guys, today we're going to talk about how to find answers to questions that you may have about the Bible using Biblehub.com. Coming up. So today we're going to talk about how to find answers to questions that you may have about the Bible. Now there's all different kinds of ways that you can go about doing this, but the cheapest, the fastest, and the easiest way that you can start with is by using a resource called Biblehub.com. It's a resource that I use all the time. We're not sponsored or given anything for making this video, but it's a resource that I like to use, and we're going to show you how to do that right now. So if you open up Biblehub.com, across the top you're going to see all these different drop-down menus, and if you go all the way to the left, there's going to give you a list of all the books in the Bible. So if you hit that drop down menu, you can scroll down and find whatever book that you're looking for. Now this is the way I like to use it. You can also use the search engine at the top of the page by typing in whatever chapter, verse, or whatever it is you're looking for, and it'll pull it up as well. I like to use the drop down menu to select a book, and then you're going to go over to the different chapter and verse, pick the chapter and verse that you happen to be looking up, and then the next tab over is going to be the versions tab. Now in that versions tab, I like to leave that versions tab as versions, or you might say just leave it blank without selecting a particular English translation. Now you can use that drop down menu and you can look up any English translation that you're looking for, but I like to just leave it on versions, and I'll show you why. What that's going to do is that's going to allow you to look at several different English translations at the same time, and by doing that you can see how this verse or passage or whatever it is you're looking for has been translated. And if you see the different ways it's been translated in English, you can kind of start getting your head around what the verse is trying to say to us. If you scroll down on this, you can see all the different ways this verse has been translated. Now, for our purposes today in this video, we're looking up Romans chapter 1, verse 1. And specifically what we want to see is, what does it mean to be a servant of Jesus Christ? So Paul says, he starts his letter to the Romans saying, Paul, a servant of Jesus Christ. So say you wanted to know what it meant to be a servant of Jesus Christ. So we'll look, and you see that word has been translated in several different ways in several different English translations. It's been translated as a servant, bondservant, or slave. It'll give you some understanding, or at least let you know that there's different ways that this word could possibly be interpreted. Now, if you scroll down on the homepage past the English translations, what you're going to run into is a lexicon. Now, a lexicon is just a dictionary, is what we would call a dictionary. So it's going to give you the definition of words. And what's great about Biblehub.com here on the lexicon, what it's going to do is it's going to break down that verse for you, whatever verse that you're on. Remember, if you look at the top of the page, it says you're still on Romans chapter 1, verse 1. So when you get to the lexicon, it's going to break down Romans chapter 1, verse 1 according to the Greek. Now, it's going to give you a word-for-word translation, and it may be a phrase for phrase depending on how the Greek is translated. So if you will go down, you will see that that word that we're looking for that is translated servant, it actually is the Greek word doulos. In Biblehub, it's going to show you what the Greek actually looks like as doulos, and it's going to give you a transliteration of that word. Now, transliteration is just taking English letters and making the Greek sound of the word. So here the word would be pronounced doulos. And you see that word doulos, the definition or the lexicon meaning of that word is slave, or to be enslaved, a male slave. Over on the left-hand side, you're going to see the Strong Concordance tab. If you click on that tab, that's going to take you to the Strong's Concordance, and that will show you what a concordance does. Is it shows you everywhere in the Bible that word is being used. Here it shows us every place in the New Testament that word doulos in its many forms is being used. And by looking at this concordance, what you can do is you can see how that word is being used throughout the New Testament, and that'll give you an understanding of how the word's being used in Scripture. So you click back out of the concordance, get back to the homepage of Biblehub.com. We're still under the lexicon, and we're still on the first page where you typed in Romans 1:1. If you keep scrolling down, that's going to get you to some commentaries. Here on the homepage, it's going to show you two different types of commentaries. It's basically an explanation of what a passage means. So typically they will go verse by verse. Sometimes it'll group some verses together. Eliot's commentary, it gives us first a summary of the first 7 passages of the book of Romans. The person that wrote the commentary giving us a summary of what we're about to get into, and it shows us that there at verse 1 through 7. And if you keep going down a little bit further, it's going to break down this verse or this passage verse by verse. We see verse 1, and under verse 1 it says servant, and it's going to tell us or explain to us how this word servant is being used at this passage by Paul. So he goes on to explain to us that technically speaking, the word doulos should be translated as slave, but it's not wrongly translated as servant. And he goes on to explain the reasons why that is. Now, if you keep going down further, you're going to run into another commentary that'll give you additional information, or sometimes they overlap the different commentaries about this particular passage. It'll give you more information to understand what's going on in the passage. Here, the specific word that we're looking up. So if you go all the way down to the bottom, on the right hand side, you'll see a tab called commentaries or additional commentaries. If you click that, that's going to take you into more commentaries. This is basically going to give you a list of all the commentaries that Biblehub has available. And all the names at the top, those are all clickable links where you can go in to look at the specific commentaries. The way Biblehub does this, it categorizes its different commentaries in columns. So on the left-hand side, you'll see expository commentaries, and on the right-hand side, you will see exegetical commentaries. On the left, expository commentaries are going to be what we would more think of as like a sermon or maybe a really detailed sermon. These types of commentaries are really good for lay people or people that don't have a lot of theological background in the technical language. They're extremely helpful. They're very good for practical application. So taking that verse, pulling out the meaning, seeing what it means, and seeing how that applies to our lives today. On the right hand side, the exegetical commentaries, those are going to be a lot more technical. Those deal more with the actual language and exegesis of the original language, either Greek or Hebrew, depending on if you're in the Old Testament or the New Testament. And it's going to break down that passage and talk about things like how specific words are used, the different cases of words, different genders of words, and all the technical grammar that goes along with. Some of them will presuppose at least some knowledge of the original language, Greek or Hebrew, but don't shy away from taking a look at these. You'd be surprised how much you can get out of some of these exegetical commentaries, even if you don't know the original language, Greek or Hebrew. If you are reading an expository commentary on the left-hand side and it's still not going deep enough for you, or you want to know even more about a particular passage or a verse, jump over to the exegetical side, see what they have to say about it, and you can learn a lot more about that. So we will go back to the home page. If you'll click back, it'll take you right back to the home page. And the last thing I want to tell you guys about, one of the last things is, if you will scroll up, go all the way up to the top of the page, and underneath Romans 1:1, what you're going to see on the left-hand side, a little bitty tab, it's going to say sum or summary. Now, if you click that link, that's going to give you a summary of the book that you're actually looking at. I think this is really helpful to get our basis or our feel for where we're at in a book. So remember, when we're reading our Bible and we're trying to understand a particular verse, the key to understanding it is context. You have to place every verse of the Bible within its context. You take that verse, you place it within the context of the chapter in the context of the book in the context of the whole Bible. So this summary tab will give you a good look at an overall view of the book. It gives you the highlights, the who, what, when, where, why, and how, who wrote the book, the special keys, themes, or interest of the book, things like that. Extremely helpful. So you click back out of that. At the top of the page, across the top, there's all these clickable links. One of those links is Interlinear. If you'll click on that, that will give you an interlinear translation or version of the Bible. These are great to look at if you want to know what the original Greek looked like. Everybody wants a literal translation. They want to know how the passage looked originally in Scripture, all these types of things. Well, by looking at an interlinear, you can actually look at the Greek and see what it looks like. So if you click on that tab for us, it'll take you to the interlinear version of Romans 1:1. You click on that and it'll open up. It shows you the Greek, how it's actually written in the original language, and then above it gives us a transliteration of every word of that passage. And then below it, it gives us an English translation of that word. So for instance, in the passage that we're in right now, say you wanted to know what Jesus' name looked like in the original language. Well, you can look in this passage, it tells us. And you'll see that word in Greek. You can see it how it actually looks in Greek. And then right above that, you can see a transliteration of that word. Remember, the transliteration is just taking the English letters and making the Greek sound. So if you look at Jesus' name, that name above, even though that kind of looks like a little L, it's actually an I. His name is Iesu in Greek. Also on these tabs, if you will click on the transliteration of the word, that's going to take you back into a concordance as well, so you can look at where all the places in the Bible that this particular word is being used. Now we'll go back to the home page. So that's it for Biblehub.com. Now, this is how I like to use Biblehub.com. There's a lot more things on Biblehub.com that you can go into. If you have some way that you'd like to use Biblehub.com or other online resources, let us know. Drop us a comment below. If you like this video, if you found it helpful, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel if that's something that you want to do, and we'll see you next time.